Hello, everybody. This is Chad coming to you from Northwest Chicagoland. We're going to talk about a very common mistake that people do when it comes to the issue of giving presentations. For most people, when they learn that they have to give a presentation, maybe their boss comes up to them and say, "You need to talk to this audience. If you have your own business, something that you figured out that you need to do, however it lands in your lap, you need to give a presentation to an audience." And it could be one person. Maybe it's a client you're trying to gain. Maybe it's 500 people at a conference in a breakout session or something somewhere in between. When people get that task, when they get that assignment, the first reaction is people want to break out Microsoft PowerPoint or Apple Keynote and begin working on that slide deck. That is the wrong thing to do. It is nowhere close to being the first thing to do, because it gets us, we fall into that trap of where the technology is the reason for the presentation. In reality, it's the messaging and the action, not the technology. The technology is supporting you in doing everything else, but we'll fall into that rhythm, into that flow of, oh, I've got to put together a slide deck. Pump the brakes, take a step back. Instead of diving into that, there are 4 questions that you need to get the answer to. Do not worry about putting the slides together, selecting transitions, whatever format you're using. None of that. It's not important yet. And it may not be important. A little foreshadowing there. So 4 questions that you need to have answered before you start building your presentation to have any chance of success. For you leaders listening out there, these are answers that you need to be able to provide to your colleagues that are doing the work for you. And we want our teams to be successful. We want our people to be successful. It's a reflection on leadership. And when it's not a successful presentation, that's also a poor reflection on leadership. So have these answers ready when you assign someone to do a presentation. So the first question: who wants the presentation done? And this needs to be specific. It needs to be the name of a person, not a faceless they, not a he or she, not a because. It needs to be the individual that is asking for this or directing for this to be done. And this person is typically referred to as a sponsor or maybe a champion. But in this conversation, we'll use the word sponsor. So who is the person that is sponsoring this presentation? You need to know this. Why? Because there's a little bit more research that you need to do to maximize your chance for success. You need to find out what that person, what they want to have happen after your presentation. This is the second question. You know the sponsor. Question number 2 is, what does that sponsor want the outcome to be from your presentation? What specific action and results that can be verified and observed, what does that person want? This may require you going and talking to that person. It's always a good idea when you're doing a presentation at someone's direction to, even if it's only a couple minutes, 5 minutes, to get some time with that person and get an understanding of what they want. Because from it being handed to, their assistant or whoever's reporting to them to 2 or 3 more people till it lands in your lap, it can change. And it may not be what that person wants, especially if nothing's written down. So it never hurts just to touch base real quick and always frame it as, I am trying to do this so that you get the result that you want. I want this to be a success for what you want. So find out who it is, find out what that person wants. And this is something that has to be clear. If it's lacking clarity on what that result needs to be, that is something where a discussion needs to be had. If the answer is, oh, just go give a presentation, you're probably going to you're going to fail. You're going to squander. You're going to flounder. And question number 3: who's the audience? Again, you need names. At least information that helps you get to the names. If you're presenting to that one person, maybe it's that customer or it's a small group, that's pretty easy to figure out. If it's a group of hundreds in a large presentation, try to create a group that's representative of the larger group. Maybe 5 people, maybe 10. It's going to be restricted by how much time you have. But try to figure out some people that are going to be in the audience. And then, same thing that you did with the sponsor, you need to understand, what does that audience want to get from your presentation? What is important to them? And this is going to help you create the presentation on both ends of the spectrum. What does the sponsor want? What does the audience want to get out of it? And by talking to your audience members or prospective audience members, you can begin to understand what communication styles might work, what information they're looking for, and how you translate that between what the sponsor wants to information that the audience can use, whether it's one person or 500. And that's going to be integral in you putting together your presentation. You need to know this before you start putting that deck together. Notice that none of these questions involve PowerPoint, Keynote, a projector, what format your slides are going to take, what handouts you're going to have. These are going to be addressed later and even determine if they are significant at a later point when you start putting your presentation together. But it is really important to make sure that you understand what the sponsor wants and what the audience needs or wants from that presentation, that they are in alignment with one another. If they are, and you are confident of this, it's time to move forward with the next steps in creating the presentation. But we're still not at the stage of creating a slide deck yet. If the result between the alignment of your sponsor and your audience is out of alignment, then you got to stop. This needs to be addressed before you go any further down the road, because if you cannot align what the sponsor wants with what the audience needs or wants from a presentation, you're going to have misalignment. It's going to cause a lot of problems, and that outcome is at risk. It may well not even occur. And one of the things is, when we're doing a communication like this, we want to do our due diligence. We want to kind of cover the bases and begin to understand what's needed by the sponsor, what outcome do they want, what's needed by the people that's receiving the message. And then once you're on the same page with that, you can begin looking at how do you create the messaging itself. But that is not the first thing. It's tempting with technology everywhere that people want to pull out, their computer, their tablet, their phone, whatever, and start working on that. A lot of organizations will have all these templates for presentations, but that's not the first step. You might not even know which template really to use if you're in an organization that has a lot of templates, and some companies do. And if you use the wrong template for the wrong messaging, that's just going to create more issues. So take a step back. Don't worry about the technology right off the bat. Find the answers for those 4 questions. Until next time, this is Chad signing off.